All right. Good morning, everybody. How we doing on this fine morning, this fine Wednesday morning? I'm showing up cozy to this live stream. Just woke up feeling like I needed to have a coat on. And yeah, now I'm all settled in at the desk, ready to execute. Hope everybody had a great night's sleep and you're ready to dive into what we have going on today. We're looking to see what the market has for us as we've been getting some mixed signals that we want to see. Just some kind of flat out conviction from. And that's really what we're looking for from the market today, and heading into the end of the week. So, as always, make sure you throw that one in the chat, signifying your intention to get 1% better by the end of the session. So, we're always looking to do, get better incrementally, and then that compounds, right? The eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. It also works for investing in yourself. So make sure that you're doing that because over time, you'll really start to see those results come as that, embetterment, that's a word, accumulates. But I'm going to go ahead and just dive directly into what we have going on here. So our top news, crude strategy. Energy prices keep on slipping with benchmark West Texas Intermediate so far down 22% in the fourth quarter, and the average price of stateside gasoline falling 16% to $3.21 a gallon. It comes as the U.S. continues to pump crude at a record rate, cranking out a record 13.2 million barrels a day, which is more than oil exporting heavyweights Russia and Saudi Arabia. The developments have been a boon to the American consumer as well as the Federal Reserve, which continues to receive much applause for the market keeping inflation at bay. So this kind of is giving me the vibes of like an election tactic, right? Making sure that we are just pumping as much crude oil as possible, keeping gasoline prices low headed into an election year, right? To make a certain someone look a little bit rosier when it comes to re-election. Bigger picture, OPEC members have been forced to respond to a record U.S. production with tensions most apparent in the reactions from kingpin Saudi Arabia. So far, the kingdom's strategy has been to slash more output, but the deeper cuts have not resonated with oil bulls and have even formed some cracks within the OPEC Plus group. Economic weakness in China, Russia's shadow fleet, and the removal of fear premiums from the Israel-Hamas war have also helped contribute to oil's decline. And the Saudis are hesitant to go nuclear by opening the taps, which would dent U.S. shale, but cause it to lose many OPEC friends in the interim. So it's really putting the Saudis in a catch-22 between a rock and a hard place. Many have also been eyeing recent developments to see whether the U.S. will refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which has fallen to its lowest level since the 1980s following the release of 180 million barrels last year, something that we covered pretty extensively here. Now, at the time, the Biden administration said it would consider refills at or below about $67 to $72 per barrel, but there have been opportunities that have been passed up when oil retook that range. WTI crude is now trading at around $71, and while the administration has been adding to the SPR, the buybacks have been limited to about 3 million barrels per month, given physical constraints in the way the caverns are set up. The caverns were fine in terms of like us storing oil in them before, so I don't know why it's trouble storing oil now. I feel like they just want to keep gas prices low, right, in order to maintain a positive image. The technicals, quote, the price of crude oil is likely to continue falling from current levels before settling at $70 at the major support, right, seeking alpha analyst Demir Tokic. Quote, even though I agree with the bearish outlook, I would not recommend shorting crude oil. The geopolitical situation could change in a moment. In this situation, a long put option strategy seems appropriate. You say that you see it falling to 70 from 71. It's a dollar drop. I don't know how long that strategy would be, but I digress, right? In terms of this guy and this options expert, I'm not really paying too much attention to oil currently. I'd rather just, again, let that settle because just like they said here in this article, any little geopolitical thing can happen, right? Something can happen with China, something can happen with Russia, something can happen in Israel, right? Something can happen in Saudi Arabia. And suddenly, right, oil is turned on its head. So there are just a lot of external factors that are affecting oil prices now, and I'd rather just stick to the blue chips and let that roll. In terms of automotive news, self-driving faith, the safety issues and regulatory scrutiny facing General Motors Cruise have pushed Alphabet's self-driving vehicle unit Waymo to the top of the leaderboard. The two companies had been competing neck and neck in recent years, but the last few months have seen Cruise's fortunes shift as safety concerns forced it to halt operations. Quote, we went from an all-time high to an all-time low, Mo Elshenway, Cruise's new president and CTO, told staff. The company's focus now is to rebuild trust with regulators, which will likely take time. On the other hand, Waymo hasn't seen a change in the tone from regulators, and its ridership has increased more than 10 times this year. So that's just another way that Google is kind of peeling ahead, right? Google's been working on self-driving vehicles for a long time with Waymo, and it seems like they're finally peeling ahead of the competitors here. So we'll see what comes about, but it's tough. I mean, with something like self-driving, it literally only takes one event. Like with Cruise, it was the autonomous vehicle hit someone and like dragged them, and I think the person died. Tough to get that image out of your head, especially when someone goes to like alert the driver and there is no driver. It's a robot, right? There's no one in the front seat. So that's tough to recover from. They already got rid of the CEO, or the CEO I think resigned because of this, and they've been trying to make something happen, but they stopped all rides that they were giving out. Like they halted everything, and yeah, it's just high stakes. So I mean, it's even more of a tip of the hat to the engineers over at Waymo, because it's like, if you make one mistake, that could be the end of the company, right? There aren't many companies that die when something like that happens, but I mean, look at Boeing. They had a freaking plane go down that killed hundreds of people, and they're still, up and going. So, but it's tough, when it's like literally just seen, like when it's there and people can see that happening and take video, whatever. That's a hard PR spin. In terms of financials, on the Hill, the heads of Wall Street's 8 biggest banks, including J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, and Citigroup, will testify before the Senate Banking Committee today to warn lawmakers that the Basel III endgame proposal will hurt the economy. Regulators proposed raising capital requirements for large U.S. banks in the summer, which the industry has repeatedly opposed. Quote, the proposed Basel III endgame rule would unjustifiably increase capital requirements by 20 to 25% for the largest banks, JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon wrote in his prepared testimony. Morgan Stanley's James Gorman will also warn lawmakers that the plan would drive more activity to the less regulated parts of the financial services industry. Yeah, I don't disagree with him, right? Which is a roundabout way of saying I agree with him. It's not the big banks that were an issue. It's the small regional banks that were idiots, right? So the big banks have tons of cash reserves and they're not really struggling at all to make ends meet. It's these small regional banks. So if anything, increase the cash reserves for small regional banks. But they might just see that as unfair. Maybe they said they need to do it all the way across the board. I don't know. I'm not like a banking expert, but these people weren't the problem. These companies weren't the problem. JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Citigroup. It was, your first regional and all that Silicon Valley, right? It's the smaller regional banks that ended up causing that issue that plagued us a few months ago with all the bank turmoil. Now, in terms of economic news, eating their words, economists who forecast the need for high unemployment to rein in inflation are now eating their words, according to the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. We're not seeing the usual signs of weakening labor markets that would make you fear a recession. Her statement comes as the labor market steadily cooled in October while the unemployment rate ticked up to 3.9%, and the JOLTS report showed a larger than expected drop in job openings. Recall that Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the U.S. was on track to get inflation down to 2% without incurring large job losses, while markets await the ADP jobs data due today and Friday's non-farm payrolls report. Seeking Alpha analyst Calafia Beach Pundit explains 6 charts that look at the economy from a big picture perspective. In terms of today's markets, let's see. We were up mostly green across the board, it's looking like, and I think that we're still roughly there. In Asia, Japan, we're up 2%, Hong Kong up 0.8, China down 0.1, India up 0.5. In London, we're up 0.5%, Paris up 0.5, Frankfurt up 0.3. The Dow are up 0.1, S&P up 0.2, might be up a little bit higher than that, NASDAQ up 0.3, crude oil down 0.9%, gold up 0.2%, Bitcoin up 5.1% to 43K, almost 44. Today's economic calendar, we got the ADP jobs report at 8:15. honestly nothing else that's important, happening this morning. So we'll wrap up here with our rapid fire stock news rundown. Apple climbs back above the $3 trillion mark amid smartphone optimism. Activist investor Ancora pushing Disney to add pelts to board. Hydrogen industry alarmed over leaked draft of tax credit rules. Job openings unexpectedly fall in October. Elon Musk's XAI startup files to raise $1 billion in equity offering. Bitcoin extends gain to surpass 43K. Closing arguments end in DOJ trial against Spirit JetBlue deal. CVS hurts GoodRx with new drug pricing model. Then P&G, ticker PG, sees up to $2.5 billion in charges from Gillette in restructuring. Pioneer, ticker PXD, and Exxon get new FTC requests for more info on merger. And then Goldman lists top 30 mutual fund underweight holdings. So that'll do it for us today, right? That'll wrap it up for us on this fine Wednesday. We look to see what the market has for us, right? And then execute based off of that. You read the charts, they tell you what's most likely to happen. You place an educated bet based off of that. And then you bring home the bacon, right? And you make sure that your money is the hardest working person that you know. If you're here and your money's not actively working for you in markets, make sure you go to adamhollandchase.com, enroll in stock options made easy, and start trading with us. Because over the course of your lifetime, the average person still becomes a millionaire, right? Whether or not you're working for minimum wage, whatever, by the time you die, you've likely accumulated $1 million. The difference is, what was that money doing for you? Was it only paying bills, right? Or was it doing something bigger for you? That's the payoff, right? You got to look at, well, what does it look like without putting your money to work? And then what does life look like with putting your money to work? It's almost like cloning yourself, which is really, really nice, right? You say, hey, I wish there were two me's. Well, there can be. There can be ones of you working overnight, right? Right here in the market. So make sure that you're executing in the market, taking advantage of the opportunities it provides each and every day. And other than that, guys, I'll see you back here tomorrow morning for our next Premarket Prep session. Have a good one.